Once you have Motion Builder open, to start, go to File, then Merge. This will open up a panel which allows you to find your motion capture export file. For us, it's Walk by FBX. It will pull up this window with all of your takes on it that you have exported from Motive. You can choose to import as many of these as needed. In this case, we only selected one. Then, hit Merge, and it adds a skeleton with all the selected movement data. This next step is all about prep work. We want to make sure that we have the ability to control the scale of our skeleton, so that when we import our character into Motion Builder, we can line them up to roughly the same scale. To do that, go over to View, and switch to Schematic View. This gives us an overview of what our entire skeleton looks like, and how it's linked together. Then, over in our Resources folder, make sure you selected the Asset Browser. Under Elements, scroll to the right until you find this null object. Click and drag to put it in your hierarchy. You can rename this to something like Root if you want to make it a little bit easier. Now, press P to select your parenting tool. Then, click on the hips and drag to the root, or null, which creates a link. So now, if we control the scale of the root, it controls the scale of the entire skeleton. After this, switch back to your selection tool by clicking on the icon in the corner. Turn off Schematic View by hitting Ctrl W. Now, there is a node at the bottom of the screen that will control the scale of the skeleton. The next step is making sure that our skeleton is in a proper T-pose. And to do that, we're going to select everything, then move over to our Properties panel. Then, move to the Rotation channel under Skeleton Nodes. Double-click to enter, type 0, then tab to go to the next window, 0, tab again, and 0. Then, there's one more node that isn't connected to the rest of the skeleton that we have to adjust, and that's the hips. Just go one panel down and adjust these as well. You'll notice your skeleton might turn 90 degrees. This will happen if you recorded your motion capture data at a 90-degree offset, but that isn't much of a problem. Next, we're going to get our actual character in here. So, go to File, Merge, and we want to find the character. In this case, we have Remy. Hit Open, and in this case, we don't want any more animations, so we're going to turn that off. Next, we're going to hit Merge. If your camera snaps to this perspective, just go to View Perspective, and then Producer Perspective. We're not sure why it does this, but that is the fix. As you can see, the character is a lot bigger than the skeleton. Make sure you have your root of your character selected. That is under Navigator, Scene, then Root, or whatever you decide to name it. Next, pick your Scale tool, and you can drag your skeleton up until it's about the same size. This can be changed later, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Next, we're going to characterize your skeleton. To do that, you're going to want to expand your root so you can see the hips of your character. Go back over to the Asset Browser, and under Templates, go to Characters. There is this character object, which we will click and drag onto the hips of your skeleton. Then hit Characterize. You'll get a prompt saying that they need to be facing the positive z-axis, which was taken care of when everything earlier was set to 0. Click on Biped, and now we have a character. You can rename this character by going to the Characters tab, expanding it, finding the character, and renaming it. We're going to call this Motion Source. And now, we're going to do the same to Remy. In this case, we don't need to set everything to 0, as it's already correctly set. Make sure you're on the hips, click and drag, then characterize. Now, to get ready to actually copy the animations of our rig. Make sure your character is properly named, and set source to motion source. You'll notice he kind of jumped, and now you can play the animation, and he's bound to that skeleton. If he's a little off, it's likely due to scaling, which can be easily readjusted to the root. In our case, the character is a bit taller than the skeleton, so the arms don't line up perfectly. Just make sure the feet are in roughly the same spot, and you should be good. And that is how you attach motion data to a character using Motion Builder.